Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to call together this meeting of the Richfield City Council. It is Tuesday, January 28th at 7 p.m. Thank you all for being here. If you are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we'll be moving on to the open forum. And if participants in the open forum may share their comments in person by voicemail or email, or may also request to participate virtually. If you notify us ahead of time, I believe it's 1 p.m. on the day of the meeting if you want to participate virtually. For more information on submitting comments, you can refer to the city agenda and minutes webpage on richfieldmn.gov/citycouncil. So thank you all for attending tonight's meeting and participating in an open forum. At the moment, I have 5 cards, so if anybody else wishes to sign up that hasn't, there's a black rolling cart in the back that you can sign up on. And the procedure for the people that are here in person is you can sign in and state your name and address, and I'll begin timing after that. And you'll have 3 minutes, and keep in mind, since there are a bunch of people here this evening, to please respect that time limit so everybody has a chance to have their opinions heard. The council will be listening and taking notes, but will not be responding to the comments. This open forum is designed to hear from you and not be a debate. Thank you. And there's one other thing before we start. I believe later on the agenda on item 7, there will be some hearings for alcohol compliance. And if you're here for the alcohol compliance hearings, you'll get a chance to speak then, so you don't need to sign up for open forum. So you'll have a chance to do that when you get to item 7. Thank you. Did anybody email or send anything in, or is it just the 5 people that are here in person? Okay, so thank you so much. And first up is Scott Dahlquist.
Good evening. Am I coming through?
Yes, we can hear you.
There we go. Good evening. My name is Scott Dahlquist. I have been a Richfield resident since 1991 and am a member of Wood Lake Lutheran Church, which is across the street from the former Crossroads apartment building, now known as Concierge. The transformation of this property into its current form was difficult to watch. The property has become an asset to the community and a home to those who can afford it, but at the cost of displacing many who were clearly not welcome anymore. In the end, I concluded that what was done was legal, but I will not call it just. Our current state of urban homelessness is the product of many factors, some within individual control and many not. Stable housing is the foundation of a successful life. Without it, it is difficult to address the many problems of life which befall all of us in one way or another. Now, the ability to own property and maximize its use is also one of the foundations of our economic system, which has provided all of us with many benefits, but which also produces many inequalities. This is a system in which we have all played a part, individually and collectively, by things we have done and left undone. I therefore urge this council to approve a memorandum of understanding supporting request for financial assistance and 4D tax status from Hempel Real Estate for the acquisition and preservation of 3 identified affordable rental communities. I believe this action will help to ensure the presence of naturally occurring affordable housing within our community. Thank you.
Thank you. And if anyone is just arriving, if you wish to speak, there's cards on the rolling cart in the back. All right, reset this. All right, next we will go on to Kathleen Balaban.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Balaban, and I live on 65th and Stevens, and I left my other notes back behind. There you go. Welcome to my two new council members, Mr. Burke and Ms. Coleman Woods. One of the things that our citizens may not know is that you two are also sitting commissioners to our Charter Commission, and that is saying one big whoo-ha. I really appreciate that. That is truly going to be a wonderful opportunity for our city, because the commissioners don't report to our city. You report to the district judge, and only the district judge. You were appointed, not selected or elected. That's saying something, and thank you for joining this council. With that said, I am going to be requesting that the City Council and the charter members collaborate to review and update their respective roles and responsibilities set forth within the code and charter for the future livability within Ridgefield. Ridgefield operates under a council-mayor home rule city with a city charter commission of 15 members, as I mentioned before, appointed, not selected or elected. And the purpose is to work with the city to set goals, governmental procedures, bylaws, through the charter and our city code. So with that said, I attended the Charter Commission annual meeting earlier this month and was completely surprised at what I had witnessed in terms of agenda and time spent. I voiced it. To me, it was unconscionable that it would only take 15 minutes for an annual meeting. I then looked at the minutes later, going back to 2012. Do you know in 2012 the meeting only lasted 3 minutes? Literally. I found this to be the normal process for this specific commission. The duration for most of them were less than 15 minutes. We had something that went on with some amendment changes in 22. It took a little longer, but for all practical purposes, that was pretty much it. It's in the bylaws, were last updated in April of 22, and prior to that was May of 1980, 42 years before the bylaws were updated. Now, when I go and look at the city of Ridgefield, because keeping in mind, we're now the elected and selected people in our commissions and stuff, what it has in its ordinances within the code that is created and amended from time to time, when looking at Ridgefield's Chapter 3, the administrative code, the council may notice that most of these codes haven't been reviewed and or updated in decades either. Now, 30 years, 40 years, come on, you guys. Technology, you know? So I'm asking that you guys collaborate and get together to create documentation in a government that is transparent and we can see it based on our current code and what we need changed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And welcome, new members.
All right. Next, we have Rod Sather. And I apologize if I mispronounced your last name.
Hi, I'm Rod Sather. I live at 6321 Thomas Avenue South in Richfield. I just want to say that I came out of the work session that was held here starting at 6 o'clock this evening, and I want to compliment city staff, the city council, and the mayor, the way they worked together, the questions that were raised, the information that was presented. I think I just need to say thank you for what you're doing, and I encourage the public, if they have any concerns about issues, look at the agenda, especially for the work session, and come and attend the work sessions. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Melissa Melnick Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mayor Supple and members of the City Council. My name is Melissa Melnick Gonzalez. I'm pastor of Tapestry. We are a community of faith, part of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America. We're housed at Oak Grove Lutheran Church here in Richfield. I've been a pastor for 10 years now. Just celebrated 10 years in 2024 along with the ministry. In 2014, we started at Wood Lake Lutheran Church, and we had as our outreach area what is now Concierge Apartments, at the time Crossroads apartment buildings. And so as a brand new pastor, all of a sudden I was called in to do some work with housing when 2,000 plus people were displaced from their homes due to a sale of the property and a 30-day notice to vacate. It was a time when people's lives were impacted. We saw the heartache. We saw students being taken out of the Richfield School District. We saw many people from protected classes who lost affordable housing. And so I come today to talk in support of the resolution supporting 4D tax classification for Hempel real estate, which is number 6 under the resolutions. I'm not the financial person. I came here last week and that is clear. But I do know many of the residents of Richfield. I work with them on a daily basis. I also work with a lot of people who can't afford to live in Richfield or who can't find housing here. And there are a lot of barriers to that, one being affordability and then other reasons. I hope that Richfield will continue its work that's happened since Crossroads happened in 2014 to maintain affordable housing that is accessible for people based on income and other reasons. So it's really important. We were displaced along with the people of Crossroads, as that was the area that we were in ministry with. Strong communities depend on strong housing, and I hope that Richfield continues to do its work to be a community that is open to many people and to keep the people who are already here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have David Snyder.
Good evening, Ms. Mayor and council members. It's great to be with you tonight. I'm Dave Snyder. I live at 513 West 70th Street for the last 7 years or so with my wife and 2 teens, 2 dogs, and 2 cats. And we're right across from Richfield High School and from Wood Lake, which is delightful. I'm here to speak in support of negotiating and granting 4D tax status to the properties to work with Hempel Real Estate to preserve their affordability. I'm also not as much a numbers person, but I have faith in the council and the HRA. I'll speak briefly. As long as I've lived in Richfield, I have made the trip to various apartment buildings, not just to register voters or do national night out activities, though I've done those many times too, but to pick up or drop off friends of my kids from school. Football practice, volleyball practice, concerts. I do a lot of driving back and forth. And if there's a dividing line of difference or indifference between homeowners and renters here or anywhere, it's just in our heads. Really, we all live here together. And if, because of our economic system, if it's going to cost maybe a couple of bucks a year to make sure that we preserve the affordable rental housing of nearly 500 neighbors so they aren't displaced out of their homes and pretty likely out of Richfield, it's worth it, because Richfield is worth it. So I want to thank you all for working on this and thank the staff for working on this, Hempel and the Greater Minnesota Housing Fund, which I believe is in on this too. So let's figure this out. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Margaret Perez.
We also have Leonardo Perez Shields, who's my son. I'm at 7228 Girard Avenue South, and it's nice to meet you, Walter. We're that like block on the other side of 35W by Wood Lake that is in your district. So nice to see the new council members and those that I haven't met. And I'll echo the thanks of others for your service to the city. I'm here with my 12-year-old son. I also live with my 6-year-old daughter and my husband, Ricardo Perez Gonzalez. And we've lived here since 2017. We are grateful, enthusiastic residents of Richfield, and one of the reasons why we chose to, we're excited about finding our home here in Richfield was not only just the great proximity and the walkability and the green spaces, but the close community feel and the affordability. It was an affordable, accessible community for us to get into. One of the challenges that we've experienced while living here is the turnover of families, especially families with young kids that are really struggling to find affordable housing in our economy. When they leave our school system, it isn't just a loss for those families, it's a loss for families like ours, because my kids lose friends and they lose stability in their lives. So these aren't just housing units, these aren't just statistics, these are real people, and people that love our community just as much as me, as much as my kids. And so I'm incredibly supportive of leveraging 4D tax status to support Hempel in coming in as a preservation buyer for these properties. And I will just say, since I have a little bit of a soapbox, that not only do we need to be preserving affordable housing, because it's so much easier to preserve affordable housing than it is to build new housing, especially in sort of a landlocked, already pretty built out city like Richfield. But we do need to figure out creative solutions to continue building more affordable housing, and really housing of any income level, because the more housing that we can build, the more that we're helping to contribute to our region's incredible deficit of housing, which is really driving up the housing costs in our community. So let's be part of, proactively part of that solution to continue building our housing stock, and then making sure that the housing that we have is well maintained, yes, and that it's around for the long haul. So I told Leo that he didn't have to say anything if he didn't want to, but I'm going to offer the floor to him in case he does want to add anything. I don't.
Well, thank you for joining us.
He agrees with me, though.
Yeah. Thank you. So is there anyone else that wishes to speak for open forum? Anyone else for open forum? Last call here. All right, then we will close the open forum and move on in our agenda to approval of the minutes of the City Council special meeting from January 7th, 2025, the City Council work session meeting from January 7th, 2025, the City Council work session meeting from January 14th, 2025, and the City Council regular meeting from January 14th, 2025.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve all those sets of minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the 4 sets of minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have approved those 4 sets of minutes. Next, we'll move on to offering a warm welcome to Congresswoman Omar, who's come out to give us a briefing while she's in Minnesota. So welcome, Congresswoman, and there's a little button there, so if the green light's on, we'll be able to hear you. So we're very pleased to have you join us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, and hello everyone. Really happy to be in Richfield tonight. Thank you, Mayor Subble and City Council members for the invitation. As many of you know, we pride ourselves in co-governance because we believe it's a core value of our office and it shapes the work that we do every single day. I want to start by congratulating Council Member Coleman Woods and Council Member Burke on your elections. It is a challenging time to come into office, so I really am personally thankful that you all are stepping up to serve our communities. Next, I want to share some of the few activities that we participated in Richfield last year. We were here for a renaming ceremony of the Richfield Post Office, and we were delighted to be joined by Mayor Subble. We named the postal office after Charles Lindbergh, a longtime Richfield resident and a veteran who was part of the first group to raise the U.S. flag at Iwo Jima. We visited the Richfield College Experience Program. We were able to host one of our monthly town halls at the Woodlake Nature Center, which I was proud to secure $3 million for a couple years ago. Last year, I was also excited to include Richfield's newest community project funding proposal as one of our 15 selections. This project would reconstruct the existing non-ADA compliant pedestrian bridge over I-35W at 73rd Street and create new trail connection in the vicinity. Last year, this project was included in the first draft of the appropriations bill for the amount of $850,000. At the end of last year, Congress passed a continuing resolution to fund the government until March, so we will continue fighting to make sure those dollars do come to Richfield. I wanted to give a little update on Congress reorganizing itself. At the beginning of each Congress, there is a process that members go through to figure out what committees they're going to be in. I am proud to report that I'll be going back on the Education and Workforce Committee with a new leadership role as the ranking member of the Workforce Protection Subcommittee. As a ranking member, I will be the lead on the Democratic side on the subcommittee, and it is an honor to be elected by my colleagues on the committee to serve in this role. I will also be going back on the Budget Committee this Congress, having served as the vice-ranking member last Congress. I've seen firsthand how crucial this committee is, and as we get into the budget fights ahead of us, all will originate and end in the Budget Committee, so I'm excited to add our voice and our values into that conversation. I will also be serving as the Deputy Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, as the co-chair of the Defense Spending Reduction Caucus, and as the co-chair of the Cannabis Caucus. I'm looking forward to making sure that we are able to work with you all to lift the things that are important to us. Last week, I introduced the Neighbors Not Enemies Act, which will repeal the outdated and xenophobic Alien Enemies Act of 1798. The last time the Alien Enemies Act was invoked, it was used to detain and deport Japanese, German, and Italian immigrants during World War II. This was one of the most shameful chapters in American history, so much so that we had to apologize and pay the victims that suffered during that time. Right now, President Trump and his staff are preparing to invoke this bill because they are saying their plan is to target cartels and transnational criminals. But that's not what it does. It's supposed to target people on their nationality and not of any of their behavior. So by repealing and at least drawing some attention to the Alien Enemies Act, we allow people to understand how unconstitutional this is and illegal, and help our colleagues work with us to repeal so that the president does not utilize it to target communities. Last week and the week before, we also voted on 3 pieces of legislation, 2 on immigration and 1 on anti-abortion. We also voted on Fix Our Forests Act, which undermines foundational environmental laws such as the Endangered Species Act and the National Environmental Policy Act. These were pieces of legislation that I voted on. The Riley Act, which is an immigration legislation, targets people who are on DACA or have temporary protected status, and it's of accusation of a crime like shoplifting that can get rid of these statuses that people have to remain documented and productive members of our communities. I know you all are absorbing the slew of executive orders. We are still sniffing through all of them. I know today it was announced that there would be a halting of funding, federal funding. A court has upheld and made sure that the federal funding continues until Monday, and we'll report back and keep you all informed on how, if it does go into effect, how it will impact municipal funding and all of the other programs that members of our communities take advantage of. We know that deportations, we've heard of some cases here in Richfield and others that have been impacted by the executive order that he signed on deportation, and we are providing people with Know Your Rights trainings. We have a Know Your Rights portion of our official website. We can send all of you the links so you all have access to making sure people understand what their rights are. Even if they are undocumented, they are constitutionally protected. We are really disheartened about the withdrawal from the World Health Organization and what that would mean for healthcare, for vaccines, and all of the important work that they do to inform research. And lastly, I will end with the fact that as the member of Congress for Richfield and Minnesota's 5th Congressional District, we serve as the liaison to any and every federal agency. And so I want to make sure people understand that we are able to do casework on their behalf. Some of the things that we can help with is immigration, work visas, humanitarian emergency and parole, expediting passport applications for people who forget that their passport is expiring and have a vacation coming up. We facilitate reviews of benefits of denial for Social Security, Medicare, and all the other benefits. We can check on the status of pending forms or requests for your tax return, for VA requests, Social Security payments, medical enrollments, and so much more. We might not be able to solve every problem, but we like to give it a try. So please utilize our office and make sure that you're coming to us so that we can expedite those requests for you. And with that, if you have any questions, I can answer.
All right, thank you so much. And I did want to add, you helped us with the United States Postal Service when, with the road construction, there was a delay in getting the drive-up boxes back. And so thank you for helping us to get those back before the holidays. So
yes,
that was much appreciated. So
it's also a federal agency that
federal agency, yes.
One that I actually specialize in since I used to work for the post office.
All right, well, thank you. Now, are there people that have any additional questions on the council? Councilmember Hafer-Leary.
Thank you for being here, Congresswoman.
Of course.
I just wanted to say I do really appreciate your presence in Richfield. You listing off some of those items. You've been very responsive the last few years especially, and I really appreciate that, and I hope we can continue doing that. And then just in general to say thank you for fighting a good fight. We're very alarmed about what's happening. Well, I'm very alarmed. I think many others are very alarmed about what's happening, and particularly as a city council member, this threat to federal funding that our residents, that all Americans have paid into and did not receive that benefit in their communities is so alarming. So absolutely anything you can do help get the money that cities are owed, we appreciate it.
Of course. And it would also be helpful when you guys do hear negative impacts that can result from the loss of resources to share with us, because it is going to be really important for us to humanize the kind of impacts that will take place. So it's not just a number, but there is a story and a human face with it.
Thank you. I will encourage staff to do that, and we will as well.
So I see we have Councilmember Coleman Woods and I believe Councilmember Burke. So go ahead, Councilmember Coleman Woods.
Thank you. Again, Congresswoman Omar, I really appreciate your attendance here. I work for an organization in my full-time job called Connections to Independence, housed out of Sabathani Community Center. And one of our partners is the Center for Torture, for Victims of Torture. And they lost their funding today and had to close their doors. We are hopeful for what may happen and that their funding continues. That work is so important, and those victims of torture and any of the relationships that we have in our community, I think need to be maintained. I could go on, so I will shorten it and say thank you for your support and continued fight for us.
Hopefully the injunction will continue, and we will continue to have those resources, so nobody has to shut down their doors, and they can continue to serve our communities.
Thank you. Councilmember Burke.
I want to echo a lot of the thanks, but in particular, I want to thank you for your support for veterans, both locally and nationally. I want to make sure that you get more recognition for that, and thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. The hiring freeze actually was one that hit the VA really hard, and will continue to do that. Then the number of calls that we've gotten from people who had jobs they were going to start, crucial jobs they were going to start that would support the VA that was already struggling with hiring freezes is unthinkable. And we know that the impact will be fully seen in the coming months, and we're trying to do everything that we can, whether it's through litigation or advocacy, to reverse some of these things. Thank you for that.
All right. Any other comments? I would like to, again, say thank you for being with us. I really appreciate it. I was going to ask you about how your office could help people that live in the 5th District, but you listed off a lot of the constituent services, so thank you for that. And I know there's been a lot of advocacy to help people, even things for like how to fill out their tax forms and things like that you don't think about, because that's a federal thing. And so I appreciate all the help that you've been giving the constituents and the people of Richfield. Thank you so much, and please come again.
Thank you all for having me.
Next, we'll move on to the approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Are there any additions, corrections, changes? All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have approved the agenda. Moving along, we are now on the consent calendar, and I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Supple. The consent calendar contains several separate items which are acted upon by the City Council in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and recommended actions have also been approved. No further council action on these items is necessary. On tonight's consent calendar, item A, consider the approval of a first reading of an ordinance amendment pertaining to City Code Section 925.01, Public Nuisances Subdivision 2. Item B, consider authorizing the purchase of 2 Olympia Millennium E ice resurfacers for $250,000 in budget year 2025 and $89,626 in budget year 2026, totaling $339,626 from CTM Services, Inc., and authorize the city manager to approve contract changes up to $175,000 without further city council consideration. Item C, consider authorizing the purchase of a Pierce Enforcer PUC fire pumper for $400,000 in budget year 2025 and $302,095.67 in budget years 2026, 2027, and 2028, totaling $1,306,287 from McQueen Emergency Group, and authorize the city manager to approve contract changes up to $175,000 without further city council consideration. And I submit these items for your consideration as part of the consent calendar.
Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. Are there any comments, questions, or discussion? I did want to point out that I was astounded at how long it would take to get things like the Zambonis for the ice arena and the fire trucks and some of that. And so I do want to say thank you to staff for thinking ahead. Just if we have to order stuff, if my math was correct, it was like 4 or 5 years in advance, and to build it into the budget so that there's that long-term plan there. So it's amazing to me that it's taking that long to get something like a fire truck or a Zamboni. So if anybody's out there listening and you read through the staff report, it kind of is jolting to see how long it takes on the supply chain. So is there any other discussion? All in favor of approving the consent calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have approved the consent calendar. Next, we'll be moving on to item number 5. And so I'm going to turn that over to Councilmember Burke.
So this is item number 5. This is to consider a second reading and summary publication of an ordinance amendment regarding drive-through signs. Board of Foods applicant proposes to replace their existing menu board sign at Taco Bell, 7740 2nd Avenue South, with a dynamic display. The zoning code currently does not address dynamic display drive-through signs. The sign code permits only one dynamic display sign per property, and limits the area of the dynamic display to no more than 35% of the sign area. In practice, these regulations can make it difficult for existing drive-through uses to convert their existing drive-through signs to digital displays. The applicant has thus requested an ordinance amendment that would establish regulations specifically for dynamic drive-through signs. Currently, the zoning code only addresses drive-through signs within the conditional uses section of the mixed-use districts. Quote, order boards, unquote, are limited to 40 square feet and 8 feet in height, and they must be located within 60 feet of the business which they serve. Although drive-up uses are also allowed conditionally in the C2 district, there is no mention of order boards within the listed conditions in that district. For consistency and clarity, staff proposes moving order board regulations to the sign section of the code and reclassifying them as drive-through signs. This would be in keeping with cities in the metro area such as Bloomington, Golden Valley, and White Bear Lake that define drive-through or menu board signs and have separate regulations and/or exemptions for them. In regard to dynamic display regulations, staff is proposing certain exemptions for drive-through signs, as described in the policy section below. With new advances in technology that often make it difficult to tell the difference between static and digital menu boards, there is merit in updating and modernizing the zoning code to allow drive-through uses to convert their existing drive-through signs to digital. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on December 9th. The Commission recommended approval of the ordinance amendment as proposed. A first reading was approved by the Council on January 14th, with an amendment limiting dynamic signs to either a single freestanding sign or drive-through signs. This change has been incorporated into the proposed ordinance. So I move by motion to approve a second reading of an ordinance amendment regarding drive-through signs and approve a resolution authorizing summary publication of said ordinance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Did staff want to add any information?
Thank you, Mayor Supple. No, I think there was a good discussion last time, and I believe that the ordinance that we've proposed makes all of the changes that were requested by the council. I'm happy to stand for any questions.
All right, are there any questions, discussions? Okay, Councilmember Hayford O'Leary.
Thank you. Just for staff, for Director Paleman, if we could just sort of talk through the concern I raised over email for the benefit of the whole council. So just in my amateur read of the ordinance, I was generally happy with where it landed. I felt like it reflected our discussion. My only concern was a lack of clarity over if you have a menu board sign and you later come to add a freestanding sign, would that be clearly prohibited? If you just want to speak to that.
Sure. I think it was a good question. And the ordinance that is attached to your packet is only showing you certain sections of the code. So the clearest way to really read this ordinance is to go out to the code section in its entirety. I believe the way that it's written, it will offer an exemption for more than one sign if there is a drive-through. However, if a location like Taco Bell has already installed dynamic drive-through signs and then would come in to apply for, let's say, their pylon sign to convert that to a dynamic sign, what we would do is reference that letter B in the ordinance, which says that one dynamic display sign is allowed. The drive-through signs are already in. They would not be allowed to use another one. I think that procedurally, staff is administering these codes and will be letting people know if they come in for a change to their drive-through signs that these then will be your allowance. These will take care of your allowance for dynamic signs on your property. Choose wisely. I think that we'll tell people that up front just as good customer service and to make sure it's clear.
Okay, thank you. And so there is an option you provided for language if we chose to make that any clearer. But just for my purposes, are you the first point of contact when people want to make an update? If Taco Bell had a new manager in 5 years and they wanted to change their sign, or do they go to a sign company and the sign company looks at the zoning code and has to figure it out themselves?
Generally, they will approach a sign company, and the sign company will hopefully give the city a call rather than try to interpret the code itself. Either way, a permit is required. Sign contractors do know that permits are required, so that's coming in for our review before a permit is issued, before anything can be installed. So while there are occasions where signs are installed without a permit, a good sign contractor is going to know to check with us first.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm satisfied that my concern is addressed then, so I'm happy to support this as written.
Is there any other discussion, any other questions? Okay, the motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we've approved the second reading and authorized the summary publication. Thank you. Next, we'll be moving on to item number 6, and I'll turn that over to Councilmember Coleman Woods.
Thank you. So the item up for consideration on item number 6 is consideration of a resolution supporting a 4D tax classification for Hempel Real Estate relating to acquisition and preservation of 3 affordable rental communities. The executive summary reads as 3 Richfield apartment communities, New Orleans Court, Richland Court, and Winton House properties were recently listed for sale. The properties containing a total of 236 units, current estimate of 477 plus residents, are located along 77th Street at Wentworth and on 14th and Cedar Avenues. See attached map. The properties built in the 1960s are considered naturally occurring affordable housing or NOAA properties. The buildings contain a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units, and rental levels are considered affordable to households earning between 50% and 60% of the area median income. The properties are currently home to 43 Housing Choice Voucher or Section 8 HCV households, 73 residents, and 5 kids at home program families, which equals 23 residents. Hempel Real Estate is seeking to purchase the properties and maintain their affordability. Hempel is a local real estate firm that has acquired and preserved several NOAA communities over the past few years. Hempel would utilize equity from the Greater Minnesota Housing Fund's NOAA Impact Fund, which contributes equity to NOAA acquisitions in exchange for preserving affordability for 15 years. Hempel is requesting assistance from the city's Housing and Redevelopment Authority, HRA, to be able to ensure affordability, limit rent increases, and undertake rehabilitation work of $2.578 million. And Hempel is seeking up to $1.77 million in financial assistance from the HRA in exchange for limiting rents and capping resident income levels, which would enable the properties to qualify for 4D tax status, 0.25% compared to a non-affordable apartment rate of 1.25%. The 4D1 tax classification offers the properties a combined annual savings estimated at $352,050 using pay 2025 values and tax rates, and an additional $3.88 million in upfront funding would be needed to make up for the savings this reduction in the tax rate provides to the property owner. On January 21st, 2025, the HRA approved a memorandum of understanding that lays out Hempel and the HRA's commitment to exploring HRA financial assistance for the project that includes providing a $1.57 million 15-year forgivable loan from the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Trust fund is, $200,000 remodeling loan, rent and income limits at 60% of the AMI for 1 and 2 bedroom units, and 70% of the AMI for 3 bedroom units. Acceptance of rental assistance and meeting with property management and city staff. 3 members of the community testified in support of the action during the HRA open forum, and with the proposed financial assistance and restrictions, the property will qualify for the 4D tax classification, which provides a benefit to the property owner but shifts the tax burden to other taxpayers. If 4D is approved for the properties, all taxing jurisdictions will have their tax capacity reduced by $278,432. To maintain the current levy amount, taxes will need to be raised on other properties. For example, the city taxes paid by the owner of the median valued income home would increase by an estimated $9.97 annually. The cost of the shift in the tax burden will, however, be offset by new tax capacity that will be added to the city's tax base in 2026 upon the decertification of 2 tax increment financing districts, or TIFs. Because the cost burden for the 4D tax certification, for the 4D tax classification reduces the city's tax capacity, the City Council is being asked to approve the use of the classification. Supporting the purchase of the properties by a preservation-oriented buyer guarantees continued affordability for the properties and offers many benefits to the residents and the community, including the following: housing stability for the 477 plus residents, including no displacement of current residents, preservation of the affordability of larger apartment units, including 24 3-bedroom and 132 2-bedroom apartments, preservation of housing for 43 HCV and 5 kids-at-home households, and continued partnerships with a preservation-oriented owner to provide more deeply affordable housing opportunities for rental assistance clients, the majority of whom earn less than 30% of the AMI. 80% of the current HCV residents in the properties earn less than 30% of the AMI. An investment of up to $2.5 million in physical improvements to the aging buildings, including safety and security, building mechanicals, roofs and windows, energy efficiency measures, amenity improvements, paint, flooring, lighting, and kitchen upgrades, and local home ownership within house property management services, offering opportunities to partner for the benefit of the residents. Failure to support a preservation-oriented buyer could result in the properties being purchased by a market rate buyer who could raise rents, displace residents, or displace rental assistance residents. According to the seller's broker, there were 3 other offers in the best and final round for the purchase of the properties, all of which were from groups seeking to flip, renovate, and resell the properties. The broker stated that one of these offers would be accepted if Hempel is unable to move forward. The recommendation action is, and I have motion to adopt a resolution approving the use of the 4D tax classification to support the preservation of affordability and rehabilitation of 3 NOAA properties, New Orleans Court, Richland Court, and Winton House. Is there any discussion from staff?
Mayor Supple, members of the council, I would just add that 2 weeks ago at the work session, you had several questions and requests for additional information, and we have provided that either in the executive summary or also in the basis of recommendation and in the attached map. But if you have additional questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor, but we don't have a second. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Does anyone have any questions for staff beyond what's in the report here? Does anyone wish to discuss the motion or talk about anything? All right, Councilmember Hayford O'Leary.
I think my thinking of this with my council hat is similar to my HRA hat thinking, which is there's trade-offs, particularly in the decision before us tonight, that we are shifting a tax burden in a small way, but a real way, to other property owners, including other actually naturally occurring affordable housing that is not receiving this subsidy. So that is tough for me, but the immediate benefit is worth it of preserving these properties, particularly the unique 2- and 3-bedroom units. I think given the options we have available, I think this is the right way to do it. And I think ultimately we do all benefit on some level by maintaining this affordable housing, even if you're not going to live there. Like you go to a gas station that pays a certain wage, that people need to live somewhere. You go to the Mall of America and those people need to live somewhere. The reality is all of our lives benefit from people working jobs that can't afford full market rate units. And it is appropriate to some extent for us to pay for that. So I support this tonight.
Are there other council members that would like to weigh in? Councilmember Burke?
Again, I thank the staff for the thoroughness of the reporting and answering some questions that I had. To me, it's imagining the people who would be displaced, having them in this room, and having a citizen come in here and asking that citizen, on average, would you pay $10 to keep these people here? To be quite honest, that's as simple as that. And I understand the concerns that have been mentioned, but to me, that's the core of this issue, and that, for that reason, I will be in favor of this.
Is there anyone else that wishes to weigh in? All right, then. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I absolutely agree with the other council members that it's difficult to determine how this may affect other residents or who are homeowners. That a $9 increase in our tax burden may, it may very well seem small to some, but I think it is a big deal for us who are on fixed incomes. So I do also take into consideration that if there is a large amount of people that would be displaced if there were another property owner that were to come in and purchase this property to flip it or to renovate and not to keep those affordable properties or those affordable rentals. So I've definitely taken this into consideration, but I do still support this in the Hempel purchase. Sorry.
Thank you. Councilmember Christensen?
Yes, I also support this affordable housing situation because with the loss of affordable housing in the city, you not only lose residents, but you also lose, the school district is affected. If families go away, there's a whole big ramification of families. This community was built on that, in post-war housing, and it was affordable at that time. And if we start picking and choosing who we want to have live here, not to keep it affordable, it doesn't really do the city a lot of good with the school district and the businesses and the small businesses that are here, that are people that are trying to have a decent, safe place to live.
Thank you. I'm also supportive of this resolution, and I talked about it at the HRA meeting, and since there are people here that weren't there, I'm going to repeat some of that. I believe the benefits to the community outweigh the trade-offs, and I we will be preserving a good deal of the affordable housing with many 2- and 3-bedroom units, which has been an issue that we have when we try and make new housing. People don't want to build 2- and 3-bedroom units. It's expensive, and we have a shortage of that. It also helps to make sure there are options for our rental assistance programs. I believe there's a significant risk of gentrification and displacements of a lot of our community members, and this option mitigates that risk, in my opinion. I also think it's important to be clear that this is not setting a precedent for future policy, and we need to study this whole 4D issue more. And I do think that we need to talk to our legislators as well, because there are the concerns about that trade-off. But these are unique circumstances. I believe it's best for the city to move forward on this particular proposal, and these 3 complexes, since they do have, as I mentioned, a lot of our 2- and 3-bedroom affordable units. They accept housing vouchers and are home to 66 school-aged children. We are already struggling to find affordable housing for those residents whose income is at the 30% of the area median income or lower, and I don't want to lose the housing we already have for them. Another unique circumstance is that the 2 TIF districts are decertifying, which will greatly offset the impact of the other taxpayers, although not entirely. So this is, like I said, it's not setting a precedent, and we have an opportunity because of those 2 TIF districts decertifying to offset it, but we do need to talk about the long-term policy. I'm okay with transferring funds at the HRA. We're going to transfer some of our housing funds, and I'm okay with that because that's the purpose that they were put there. The amount of subsidy per unit is similar to other projects that we've approved. There was an idea at the HRA meeting in the open forum that came from a resident to look into non-monetary things, like saying, can the developer put in place a residence council and meet with them? And one of the requirements we have is that the property management meets with the city staff to discuss ways to best serve residents, and that's a good start. But I would really encourage the developers, if this goes through, to set up those residence councils, because that would be helpful. I was pleased to see the investment of the $2.5 million in renovating the actual physical buildings to make them better. And again, overall, the benefits seem to outweigh the trade-offs, and so I believe this is a good use of our housing money, and I will be in support. Are there any other questions, discussions? All right, then we will bring this motion before us. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have passed. Can staff tell us the next steps? Now that this is passed, what would be the next steps in the process?
Yes, Mayor, council members, it will now go back to the HRA with a formal agreement now that we have your approval for 4D. The buyer Hempel is in the process of doing their due diligence, which includes inspecting the property so that they'll get a more firm idea of the amount of money needed for upgrading and rehabilitation. And so once they have that number, then we can take that to the HRA. So it'll likely be at the February meeting.
Thank you. And so for those of you anybody that's listening, that's another opportunity for the public to weigh in. So we want to make sure that everybody is part of this process. With that, we will move on to item number 7, and I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Hayford-Leary.
Thank you. This is a violation hearing in consideration of resolutions regarding civil enforcement for establishments that recently underwent alcohol compliance checks conducted by Richfield Public Safety staff and failed by selling alcohol to a person under 21. So just to be clear, if you're here representing a restaurant, I will read the summary of the staff report, and then I will individually call on each restaurant if they want to send a representative up. So the staff report tells us alcohol compliance checks were conducted by Richfield Public Safety staff on November 14th, 2024. Compliance checks are done to determine the availability of alcohol to people under 21 and meet state statutes. There are currently 25 establishments in Richfield that hold licenses to sell alcohol. 3 of the 25 establishments checked sold alcohol to an underage person. The action being taken today is for civil enforcement and penalties against these establishments. It is a first-time offense for Joy's Pattaya Thai Restaurant, LLC, at 7545 Lindale Avenue South. And the following two restaurants will be treated as a first offense because it has been more than a year since their offense, but Devani's, which previously failed on December 17th, 2022, more than a year ago, and My Burger, which failed on November 3rd, 2021, but again, more than a year, so will be treated with the first offense penalties. Establishments will be given an opportunity tonight to admit they made an unlawful sale to an underage person and agree to the penalties imposed by the City Council, or they may deny the allegations and request a contested case hearing. The Council will adopt a resolution imposing the penalties for establishments that admit to the violation. If the allegation is denied and a contested case hearing is requested, the City Council will refer the matter to an independent hearing examiner. Establishments will be notified of the hearing date and given the opportunity to present evidence and rebut the city's evidence at the hearing. And for the first-time offense, the public safety recommendation and the guidelines that we previously followed set forth in resolution number 9511 are to suspend the license to sell alcohol for 5 days, pay a $1,000 civil fine, meet with the Director of Public Safety to present a written action plan to ensure future compliance, and require that a manager attend an alcohol compliance training and awareness presentation with costs paid by the establishment. The training must be conducted by a private firm and approved by Public Safety. So again, if we have a representative up, we'll have Joyce Patayatay first if we have a representative from Joyce tonight. Okay.
Excuse me for a second.
yeah.
Can we clarify with the city attorney if there's not a representative here, what the procedure is?
Mayor and council, I guess I would ask staff first if they've heard from the establishment as to whether they are admitting or denying the allegations.
Thank you for the question, Mayor. All three establishments were contacted and told that they should have a representative here tonight. I'm unclear why there isn't somebody here from Joyce Pataya. They have been in communication with staff, so we can reach out to them tomorrow. They were not contesting the sale, I know that, so we'll have to follow up with them tomorrow.
And Mayor, I would recommend that you just adopt the resolution tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have a representative from Devani's here? Okay, please come up to the lectern. And you're certainly free to give us additional context if you want, but the main thing we need to know is, do you admit guilt and accept the penalties, or do you wish to request that hearing?
Well, yeah, we admit guilt and accept the penalty.
Okay, that's all we need. Thank you. And do we have a representative from My Burger? If you could just state your name and title too. Sure. Yeah.
Joe Spencer, I'm a district manager for My Burger, and no, we don't have any contest. We admit guilt on that.
Okay, thank you. All right. So I will move, the city attorney has suggested that we vote on these separately, so I will move the resolution suspending the liquor license for Joyce Patayatay Restaurant LLC, doing business at Joyce Patayatay, and imposing a civil penalty for first-time alcohol compliance failure.
Second.
May I ask a question before we?
Yes, go ahead.
So do we need anything from Joyce to make it clear that they do accept guilt or that they're waiving the contested hearing? Do we need anything before we proceed on that?
Mayor and council, I understood, maybe Ms. Anderson can correct me if I'm wrong, that they were not contesting.
So it's been confirmed and my question's been answered.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Then we'll vote on the motion before us. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
All right.
Continuing on.
I move a resolution suspending the liquor license for Devani's Inc., doing business as Devani's Pizza and Hot Hoagies, 6345 Penn Avenue South, and imposing a civil penalty for first-time alcohol compliance failure.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That resolution is also passed.
All right, and I move a resolution suspending the liquor license for My Burger Operations LLC, doing business at My Burger, 6555 Lindale Avenue South, and imposing a civil penalty for first-time alcohol compliance failure.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have also passed that resolution. Thank you.
Thanks to the business folks for coming tonight.
Yes, we appreciate you coming to the hearing. Next, we'll move on to item number 8. Councilmember Christensen.
Thank you, Mayor. This is to consider appointment to fill a vacancy on the Sustainability Commission. Terms of several city advisory board and commission members expire on January 31, 2025. Terms for advisory board and commissions are for 3 years. The City Council directs the City Manager's Office to conduct an annual recruitment seeking applicants to fill the vacancies. This recruitment includes a press release and information on the city's website and social media platforms. Applicants were interviewed at a work session held on November 16, 2024. The Sustainability Commission had an unexpected resignation after all positions were filled. During the recruitment process, council designated alternate candidates as there were not enough open positions for all applicants. The alternate applicant was reviewed and approved by council. By motion, we are asking to approve the appointment of Alexa Wozniak as Sustainability Commissioner commencing on January 28, 2025 and expiring January 31, 2026.
I will second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? For those of you that were new to the council, we were fortunate this year that we had a plethora of applicants for the commissions and far more than we had spots for us, so we adopted the policy of putting alternates in place, and this is the second time, I believe, that we're using that. And I do remember Alexa's interview, and I think will be a really great commissioner. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? All right, it's been moved and seconded. I believe you moved it and then second. Okay, thank you. It's getting late here. All right, if there's no further discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we have approved the new commissioner. Thank you. And thank you to Alexa, if she's listening to this, for applying to be on the commission. Next, we'll move on to the city manager's report. City Manager Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. As Congresswoman Omar mentioned, we are also trying to find out more details about the recent order from the Trump administration pausing grants and loans. In the interim, staff are pulling together the potential federal funding that could be threatened or delayed, and then we will continue to track the impacts of that. It just happened, so we're just starting that work, but we'll keep you updated.
Are there any questions for the city manager? Okay, I look forward to those updates because I know the first thing that popped into my mind was the $3 million that we were getting for Wood Lake, so it'll be good to find out. Next, we'll move on to claims and payroll.
I move approval of claims and payroll.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve claims and payroll. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we've approved claims and payroll. So now, next is hats off to Hometown Hits, and so let's start with Councilmember Coleman Woods.
I don't have anything at this time.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Christensen.
Yes, I'd like to do a hats off to Hometown Hits for the Wood Lake Nature Center. With its being under construction very shortly, that they are going to be keeping up with having different camps in the city at various locations. And I'm encouraging all of the families still to sign up their kids. It'll be a great time at different locations. And with the new building coming in, it will be a fabulous place for all the residents to visit.
Thank you. Councilmember Hayford O'Leary.
I just wanted to, share information with my council members and thank residents of Lakeside Condos for meeting with me, just to give preliminary feedback on a proposal for the site south of their building behind Lake Winds. So I appreciate their collaboration and their eager involvement in this process.
Thank you. Councilmember Burke.
Nothing today, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to add on to what Councilmember Christensen said about the Wood Lake Nature Center. I wasn't able to attend, but this Sunday there was a farewell where a lot of the former volunteers and staff and other people who had been involved in Wood Lake for the last 50 years got together. And from what I understand, it was very well attended and a lot of stories were told. And I found out, there's a big mural in there with a lot of wingspans and stuff, and I never knew that one of our residents and her daughters painted that. And so I found out later on that it was a former student of mine and her mother that painted it. So that was kind of, another little fact that I didn't know. So Wood Lake was a very special place, and I'm glad everybody was able to get together and work on that. And then I want to do another hats off. There is a woman who's been organizing people's donations from Ridgefield. Her name is Tanika Smith, and so she reaches out to the community and she asks for donations, and so she organizes all of this. It's things to help the people that are in the homeless encampments. So to help out the people that are unsheltered, Ridgefield residents have been donating blankets and warm clothing during the cold snap. And then Tanika Smith is the person that then also cooks meals and things on things like Thanksgiving or different times. And so she organizes all this and cooks all of these things. And so I just want to say thank you because she's done so much for our community, and I think she deserves a hats off. All right. So is there anything else that anyone would like to bring up for hats off? So if not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I move adjournment.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And we stand adjourned.